You just have to just keep going, even when you really don't want to. My life before I started the practice was pretty grim for about 20 years. I got chronic fatigue quite soon after giving birth to my second child, which was due to pushing myself too soon, I think. Hormones, probably. And that lasted for about 4 years or maybe longer. In the end, I tried everything and I radically changed my diet. And that was what seemed to really help. But my sleep never recovered from that. And I never felt, I mean, I always put it down to being a mum and a musician, but I never felt like I was kind of back to who I was before, physically or mentally. I'm a positive person, but I struggled. And then I had arthritis that started in my 20s. And then it just got so painful that 3 years ago, I had my first hip replaced. And then 2 years, actually, this is probably about 4 years ago. And then 3 years ago, I had the other hip replaced. And the operation went wrong. So I ended up with one leg longer, much longer than the other. A week later, I had another operation. And then a year after that, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had a mastectomy, which in a way, I know much more about cancer now than I did. I rushed into that. And a few days after my mastectomy, I got hematoma, which meant basically there was an infection and blood rushed in and I'd have another operation. So it ended up being 5 major operations in 3 years, on the top of not feeling great anyway. And so I was reeling after all that. And I joined a couple of cancer groups that were all about how to help yourself with your diet and your exercise, and really trying to get your whole body and mind properly going. Which I think, you know, I did do that quite radically. I've always tried to get to the bottom of things. I've always known that the symptoms, there's going to be a cause behind it. If you can get that, that's what I'm always like. That's what I was aware of. And just by complete chance, somebody had put on Facebook about, there was a link to Botego, to your online, saying, anybody you know anything about this? And by chance, I clicked on it. And then I signed up to a free webinar. And in fact, when I signed up to that free webinar, I was the only one. I was on my phone and I'd never done anything like that before. And Rob came up and I was just about to, because I was like, he's talking to me, you know? And I was just about to press sort of like, as if like, oh God, like, you know, and I didn't. And I'm so glad I didn't, because that's when my life started changing for the better.
You met Joe, did you?
Yeah, it was Joe. Did I call him Rob?
Yeah.
Yes, I met Joe. And he was wonderful, you know, and he was so living proof and like so positive and enthusiastic about it. So I signed up for the beginner's workshop. And that was about 14 months ago. When I met Joe on that free webinar, I did my control pause then, and it was around 13, which was pretty dismal. And it was like I hadn't been moving. I was sat on the settee and I'd been there for about an hour beforehand. So it was obviously quite low. And I think his enthusiasm and his story was what made me think I'm going to try this. You can't really grasp what it's all about. You can't really grasp, I don't think, what it's all about for quite a few months. If you're as far behind as I was, I don't know. There are younger people, I think, that respond quicker to Botego. I kind of think I saw that in some of the workshops, which I would like to stress to anybody who is maybe a bit older and who's had longer chronic illnesses and who sees other people, because you can't help but compare. And people are always telling you, the lovely people that are leading it all, are always telling you that you can only go at the rate that you go. But because it's such a new thing and such a thing that's so away from anything of your understanding about oxygen and carbon dioxide levels and things like that, you can't help but wonder about it all. And you have to take a leap of faith, which again, I think isn't easy, because all the people around you really are kind of thinking that it's all a real bizarre thing that you're doing. Pretty much everybody thought that, and especially when I started losing the weight, everybody was worrying And it's quite hard to explain what you're doing because it's so alien to what anybody's ever heard before. But I think there were certain things that just, I think it was a mixture of the people who lead the whole workshops, a mixture of Martha, Joe, Marcel, Vladimir, Chris. And actually I had lovely, oh my God, I can't remember her name. She was the beginner workshop because I did the Greek one at the beginning.
Oh yeah, you mean Irene?
Irene.
Yeah.
Irene. I had Irene at the beginning, who was just lovely. They're all lovely in different ways. You do have to take a leap of faith, but I think there was this thing that I recognized about just feeling incrementally better after whenever I did it. It was so difficult for so much of the time, especially at the beginning. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, ever. I didn't want to do any of the exercises anytime during the day and the night. I never wanted to do them. Lockdown has been an absolute gift because it's given me that time. But I just kept going, and it's been so gradual. And I think it's not just physically, but mentally very hard, because when you're cleansing and everything, that can be a real struggle. But now, 14 months on, you get these glimpses of what it is, and that's helpful. But then you can then feel really quite ill with the headaches and the fatigue. I'm saying all this because now, 14 months on, I'm now sort of leveling around 30, and I want to keep going till I get 40. I'm feeling better now than I have felt for years, not just physically, but mentally. And I've noticed actually not just the physical sort of energy that I'm getting back and strength and just general vitality feeling, but the mental sort of like, that's what's just as exciting. Like I say, I'm always a positive person, so, but that's been a struggle, but it's less of a struggle now. It's positive. Everything looks like positive. The future kind of looks positive. Everything looks easier and more attainable and, you know, more fun. My control pause is stabilizing around 30. I think that's the last sort of couple of months is when I've just suddenly had this, you know, this epiphany sort of time of, this is what I've been hoping for and getting glimpses of. Because for so long, at the beginning, the cleansing was hard because it's the hardest thing I've done. The headaches and the fatigue just seemed never ending. I'd get these glimpses and I'd always feel better after the exercises, but it wouldn't be long before I'd start to feel tired, very tired, or it was mainly the fatigue, really, I think, for me, that was the hardest thing. Then I got to a point where I was fluctuating madly between 20 and even like up to 40 on these odd, amazing times, but mainly just really up and down. And like I say, I'm now stabilized, seemingly. And the other thing that I kept being told, but that I have to stress, is that the actual exercises, the actual holding and building up your MPs is easier. It's so much easier. At the beginning, it's so hard, and you have to break through that, and you have to just keep going, because now the exercises are much easier. You can just, even when you get into these points where it's getting hard and you do all this, it's manageable. Your brain understands it more, something's more understandable. So that's definitely, not only am I feeling better, but I really want to go striding towards 40 now, because I feel like I'm not under any illusions that I'm going to hit like some more cleansing, because that's the nature of it. But I want to get there because I've had this glimpse now of what it's like at 30. And so, let's just keep going. And actually it's lockdown at the moment, so I might as well use the time that I'm having at the moment to put this time in.
Well, that point you made is just really, it's very characteristic of a control pause of 30. And it's to do with oxygen levels. And once the control pause zips over 30, the oxygen level is such that you're out of anaerobic respiration. You're out of the fight-flight mechanism. So now you've got enough oxygen to be logical and to be able to think through problems much more easily. and you're not being buffered around by your emotions, you'll notice a difference in your own practice. So when your control pause is 28, you'll feel slightly on edge. You're not quite as rested and relaxed and logical as you are when your control pause is 30 or 31 or 32. It's that sharp a cutoff. And I found that fascinating when I discovered that point. So if you watch that, you know, if your control pause drops to 28, you should know by the way you feel. If it's gone below 30, you'll feel that slight edge of being pushed around by your emotions. Your mood will change a bit.
That's amazing, isn't it? Do you know what I have started doing as well? If I have to talk to somebody on the phone that's, you know, or anything that I feel slightly, then I'll just do a couple of pauses before it, because then immediately it's fine. I'll pick the phone up and it's like a magic tool, really, that I've started, you know. But that's fascinating about the 30. Yeah. There's a lot of difficult things about doing Buteyko. All your family and friends are questioning you about it. It just seems such a bizarre thing to be doing. Everybody's worrying about you. They're worrying about you anyway, because you're obviously not well in some ways. That's why you wanted to do this. And now they're worrying about you, Matt, because this sounds like a mad thing to do. And then when you start losing all the weight, they get really worried then. And I got worried about the weight. I did get worried. But the wonderful practitioners, Martha, Christopher, they all just kept saying, keep going, yes, this is what happened. And you know, they always explained the physiological reasons for it. Everything makes sense. But the trouble is, everything would make sense for that conversation. And then you try to re-explain it to your mum or your daughter or your friends, and they just look like, and then you couldn't remember all the specifics either. So that'd be quite difficult. But you have to just keep going. That is the thing. You have to keep going. And I am living proof of that, because it seemed to take so long to get anywhere at the beginning. It was only really quite recently that I started to feel the benefits. And I think that is quite hard when you're going to the workshops and you're hearing that, you know, you can see people leapfrogging you. People that were behind you have just come up, and then they seemingly that their CP's really got, and you're just still like cleansing and keeping going and everything. But now I'm stabilized around 30. It really is. It's so great. I can't convey to you how great it is and how it's like a miracle. The benefits for me are a mixture, more energy, definitely, in like different kinds of energy, that just feeling awake. There's been sort of certain points where I'm like, I haven't opened my eyes this wide for years. They just feel like I'm awake, whereas I just have felt so tired for so long, so exhausted by life, you know, wondering what it's like to live in a body that isn't tired. My partner, he's quite a healthy person, and I've just been so jealous of his just feeling all right. I've just wondered what that feels like. And I know suddenly I've got it back. My sleep was so bad for 20 years. It's still not completely sorted. A long time to sort out. I think longer than some others that might be doing the Buteyko, but I'm saying this in case there's anybody else who feels like, is this going to ever work? Well, yes, it will, but it'll take a long time, because it did for me. It's still ongoing. However, it's incrementally getting better and better. And the thing that initially helped anyway was the whole mental attitude that Buteyko has towards sleep, and how it's a cleansing thing, how it's a symptom anyway. And when you're cleansing this, it makes it worse, and everything will get better. And having that kind of feeling of support about the sleep helped anyway in the night. It just helped me. And I've just felt in the last sort of few weeks, as I've stabilized at 30, my sleep is getting more restful. My body is more restful in the night. My mind is more restful. I'm not saying that I'm still not waking up, but I've had over the last sort of, only in the last sort of, it's really since I've stabilized, but I've had like 2 nights where I actually slept like 6 or 7 hours, and that's not ever happened in years, you know, it's normally 2 or 3 hours. But I've also had nights where I've woken up and I'm just awake for a little bit and I know that I'm going to go back to sleep. And that's, again, that's a mental thing that that's not existed in my life for probably about 20 years. So, you know, but it's been very slow, that, and I'm stressing that in case some people feel like, will it ever get better? And it's just now starting to get better, and it's a wonderful thing, that is. My skin is like, people are asking me about my skin. I mean, I don't know, it doesn't, I'm older, but it's clear, like my skin just looks amazing. I've never had too much of a problem with food or my weight or anything like that, but you just know when you're hungry and you know when you're not hungry. It just feels like completely normal. So your relationship with food is much more normal, I think, in a way. It's a very natural feeling. I'm a musician. I've questioned with my confidence and things, and I'm just sort of feeling like, I just feel mentally like less anxious about everything. That's a massive benefit. I think with the physical exhaustion of things, you are just always mentally exhausted and you beat yourself up. And I think with the whole way that I'm improving with the CP and everything, it's you just mentally and physically going hand in hand at the same time, really. And that's a really great thing. Not just feeling more energy, but feeling more positive and really great. It's taken me 14 months I haven't taken a day off of doing the practice at least 4 times a day, often, certainly in the early months, doing it as much as I could, all the while, let me stress, hating it because it was so hard, and it's, you know, it didn't feel nice and it was so difficult, and I just, you know, but I think I'm a musician and I understand the value of practice, and that sometimes nothing seems to be progressing at all when you're practicing. You can sometimes, you almost feel like you're going backwards, but generally over my lifetime with the instruments that I've practiced, I have got better. And the instructors, they always made sense whenever I asked them about anything or was worrying about anything or was anxious about anything. They were so calm, ready for me, and gave this explanation that seemed to make a lot of sense. So I just knew I had to keep going. But that is not easy, but that is the nature of practice, is that nothing happens quickly, nothing. To learn any type of practice, it happens very slowly, and that can be torturous sometimes, but then the benefits ultimately are always amazing if you just keep going at something, as I'm now trying to sort of convey. You just have to just keep going, even when you really don't want to. I'm starting to more and more understand when a lot of friends or family talk about health problems, and I'm starting to think, well, maybe if you did Buteyko, that might help. But it just seems like, A, I don't know enough about the physiological side of things, and B, again, people are just generally kind of suspicious about anything like that. However, I do think that when I come out of lockdown, when we all come out, I'm going to be noticeably better. And so hopefully if people do comment on that, then I'll be able to say, go to buteykoonline.net. Martha, when I spoke to her right at the beginning, and I was all sort of kind of listening to her say about it, and I was like, wow, so shall I tell people? You know, I could tell people about you, you know what? And Martha was very, which I understand now more than I did at the time. She was like, well, when you're better, when people ask, why are you looking so better? Then you can direct them to us. And she was probably saying that because, you know, she was wondering if I could last a week or a month or you know, because it is so difficult. But now, having done that and starting to really reap the benefits, I want everybody to understand, but it's not easy. It's like I say, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. But possibly the best thing.